You've been lied to about human smell. For the vast majority of our species' existence, nobody used deodorant, and somehow civilization didn't collapse. In fact, our ancestors would be puzzled by what we slather under our arms every morning, and they'd have good reason to question it. The story of deodorant isn't just about hygiene, it's about one of the most successful marketing campaigns in human history. A campaign so effective that it convinced an entire species to become ashamed of their own biology. Today, most Americans use deodorant daily, spending billions of dollars annually on products that didn't even exist 150 years ago. What's fascinating is that the concern about body odor that deodorant addresses was largely amplified by the people selling the solution. To understand how we got here, we need to travel back through time and examine what humans actually smelled like before Procter & Gamble told us we were disgusting. The truth is far more complex and far more disturbing than you might expect. Humans have two types of sweat glands, and one of them has been getting us into trouble with advertisers for over a century. Eccrine glands cover most of our body and produce watery, largely odorless sweat for temperature regulation. The troublemakers are the apocrine glands, concentrated in our armpits and groin. These produce a thick, protein-rich secretion that bacteria absolutely love to feast on. When bacteria break down these proteins, they create the compounds we associate with body odor. Now comes the plot twist that changes everything. Researchers suggest this smell may have served important evolutionary functions. Our distinctive human scent appears to have helped our ancestors communicate information about health, genetic compatibility, and emotional states. We developed complex scent signatures that other humans could interpret, a biological communication system that predates language. Even more intriguing, our body odor carries information. Humans can detect genetic compatibility through scent. Women are naturally attracted to the body odor of men whose immune systems complement their own, maximizing their potential offspring's disease resistance. We were literally designed to smell each other. For most of human history, this biological reality was simply accepted. Ancient Mesopotamians, around 2000 BCE, developed the first deodorizing practices, but these were luxury items for the elite. They created perfumed oils and resins, not to eliminate odor, but to add pleasant scents on top of natural human smell. The goal wasn't to become odorless, it was to become more fragrant. The ancient Egyptians took body care seriously and developed sophisticated grooming practices, including hair removal, though the specific connection between underarm hair removal and odor reduction is less clear than once believed. What we do know is that they created elaborate perfumes and oils as status symbols, layering pleasant scents over their natural human smell rather than trying to eliminate it entirely. Romans elevated bathing to an art form, but again, the goal wasn't to eliminate natural human scent. Roman baths were social institutions where people gathered to conduct business, gossip, and relax. The bathing removed dirt and excess oils, but Romans still used heavy perfumes and scented oils. They weren't trying to smell like nothing, they were trying to smell expensive. None of these ancient practices were driven by shame about natural body odor. They were status symbols. Smelling good meant you had access to rare oils, expensive perfumes, and leisure time for elaborate grooming rituals. The poor smelled like humans, the rich smelled like flowers and spices. This pattern continued for millennia. Medieval Europeans had complex relationships with bathing, while some periods saw less frequent bathing due to various cultural and practical factors. The idea that they rarely bathed due to religious beliefs about cleanliness being vanity is largely a myth. But they weren't sitting around feeling ashamed of their natural scent. Everyone smelled like humans, so human smell was normal. The wealthy used perfumes, but these were applied over natural body odor, not instead of it. A 14th century noblewoman might smell like roses and sweat simultaneously, and this was considered perfectly acceptable. The perfume announced her wealth. The human smell underneath was just biology. Everything changed in the 19th century, but not for the reasons you might think. The shift wasn't driven by new scientific understanding of hygiene. It was driven by urbanization, class anxiety, and eventually, brilliant marketing. As cities grew larger and denser during the Industrial Revolution, people found themselves in closer quarters than ever before. Suddenly, other people's smells became unavoidable. Victorian society, obsessed with propriety and social distinctions, began to view strong body odor as a sign of lower class status. This wasn't about health, it was about social hierarchy. The Victorians developed an elaborate code of conduct around scent. A proper lady might perspire lightly, they called it glowing, but she must never smell of it. Men were allowed slightly more olfactory leeway, but only slightly. Perfumes became more sophisticated, and the wealthy began to distinguish themselves not just by smelling good, but by smelling subtle and refined rather than overwhelming. The real revolution began in 1888 with a product called Mum, the first commercial deodorant. The inventor's identity remains mysterious. Some say it was named after an anonymous chemist's nurse. Others claim it referenced "mum's the word" because armpits were too embarrassing to discuss openly. Mum was a waxy cream containing zinc oxide that actually killed odor-causing bacteria rather than just masking the smell. Revolutionary technology, but it faced a massive problem. Nobody thought they needed it. Americans in 1888 didn't consider body odor a serious personal failing. They used perfume when they could afford it and accepted human smell as natural when they couldn't. The breakthrough came around 1910 with a young woman named Edna Murphy. She developed a product called Odorono, odor, oh no, inspired by antiperspirant technology, and began what would become one of the most influential marketing campaigns in history. Edna's first big success came at the 1912 Atlantic City Summer Exposition. The heat created desperate customers who became walking advertisements when they returned home. She cleared $30,000 that summer, equivalent to nearly $900,000 today. But Edna faced a fundamental challenge. She was trying to sell a solution to a problem most people didn't know they had. This is where the story takes a dark turn. Edna partnered with James Young, a former door-to-door Bible salesman turned advertising copywriter. Young understood something crucial. You can't sell a product by explaining what it does. You have to make people ashamed of not having it. Young's 1919 advertisement in Ladies' Home Journal was a masterpiece of psychological manipulation. The headline read, "Within the curve of a woman's arm." The ad told the story of a charming woman who couldn't understand why men lost interest after dancing with her. The answer, of course, was underarm odor, something she couldn't detect herself, but that was obvious to everyone around her. The ad was scandalous. Ladies' Home Journal received angry letters from viewers who felt it was inappropriate to discuss such intimate matters. But it worked. Odorono sales skyrocketed because Young had done something unprecedented. He'd convinced women that they might be unknowingly offensive. This marketing strategy spread like wildfire. Advertisements began featuring women losing jobs, failing to marry, or being socially ostracized due to body odor they couldn't detect. The message was clear. You can't trust your own nose. You might be disgusting and not know it. The most insidious part was how these ads redefined femininity itself. Proper ladies, according to the new marketing wisdom, didn't just avoid smelling bad, they avoided smelling human. The goal shifted from masking natural odor to eliminating it entirely. For the first time in history, smelling like nothing became the ideal. Marketing to men required different tactics. Early deodorant ads for men focused on professional consequences rather than romantic failure. A 1935 ad for Lifebuoy soap showed a businessman being passed over for promotion, with the caption explaining that colleagues had complained about his office offense. The message, "Your natural smell could cost you your career." By the 1950s, these campaigns had achieved something remarkable and disturbing. They'd convinced Americans that their own biology was socially unacceptable. Nearly 90% of American women use deodorant regularly, compared to about 50% of men. The difference wasn't biological. It was the result of targeted marketing that had convinced women their natural scent was more socially dangerous than men's. The success of deodorant marketing reveals something profound about human psychology and social control. In less than 50 years, advertisers had convinced an entire population to become ashamed of a biological function that had served our species for millions of years. The story doesn't end with shame. It gets weirder. Modern deodorant technology has created an entirely new set of problems that our ancestors never faced. Aluminum-based antiperspirants work by forming plugs in sweat ducts, literally blocking a natural bodily function. We're essentially clogging our pores to avoid the appearance of being human. This has consequences. When we block sweat in our armpits, our bodies compensate by sweating more in other areas, a phenomenon called compensatory sweating. We've created a biological arms race between our natural functions and the chemicals we use to suppress them. Even more disturbing is how deodorant has changed our relationship with our own bodies. Dr. Johan Lundström at the Karolinska Institute points out that humans are now so accustomed to artificial scents that we've lost the ability to interpret natural body odor. We can no longer detect the health information, genetic compatibility markers, and emotional states that our ancestors read through scent. We've essentially blinded one of our senses in the name of social acceptability. Imagine if we convinced people that natural eye color was offensive and everyone should wear colored contacts. That's essentially what we've done with our sense of smell. The implications extend beyond individual choice. The deodorant industry now generates billions of dollars annually in the United States alone, selling us solutions to problems that largely exist because we've been told they exist. We're paying corporations to make us ashamed of our biology, then paying them again to fix the shame they created. Perhaps the most fascinating aspect is how arbitrary our current standards really are. Different cultures have completely different relationships with body odor. Many East Asian populations have a genetic variant that produces virtually no underarm odor, making deodorant largely unnecessary. In some African cultures, natural body scent is considered attractive and healthy. Our Western obsession with odorlessness isn't universal, it's cultural. The COVID-19 pandemic offered an unexpected glimpse into how artificial our scent standards have become. With masks covering faces and social distancing reducing close contact, many people reported using less deodorant. Some discovered they didn't miss it. Others found that reducing deodorant use actually improved their skin health as they were no longer irritating sensitive underarm skin with daily chemical applications. This raises a profound question. What would happen if we stopped being ashamed of smelling human? We're not talking about abandoning all hygiene. Regular bathing removes dirt, excess oils, and genuinely problematic bacteria. But the obsession with complete odorlessness is historically unprecedented and biologically questionable. Some researchers suggest that our over-sanitized approach to body odor might be contributing to increased rates of allergies and autoimmune disorders. The hygiene hypothesis proposes that reduced exposure to natural bacteria, including the bacteria that live on our skin, may be weakening our immune systems. By sterilizing our armpits daily, we might be disrupting beneficial bacterial ecosystems that evolved with us over millions of years. For 200,000 years, humans managed to fall in love, build civilizations, and create art while smelling like humans. The idea that our natural scent is shameful was invented less than a century ago by people trying to sell us something. We've been trained to be disgusted by our own biology, and that training runs so deep we rarely question it. The most successful advertisements don't just sell products, they sell new versions of ourselves, complete with new anxieties and new needs. In the case of deodorant, they sold us the idea that smelling human was no longer human enough, and we bought it, literally.